All right, geometry review for test 1 through 15 or test 3. Let's see, let's look at some questions here. Actually, number three, the way that it showed up on your sheet, there wasn't enough information to go on, so I'm going to throw number 3 out, okay? Because it wanted you to use a protractor and some different things. So let's go on to the next one. The next question up was, I think, number 9. Okay. Number 9. Determine the midpoint C of the line segment AB connecting A, which is negative 1.82.5, and B, negative 8.65.1. So we're going to need to know our midpoint formula. Our midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Okay, so midpoint formula given two sets of coordinates, right? All right, our sets of coordinates were, let's see, negative 1.8, 2.5, negative 8.6, 5.1. Okay, so I've got x1, x2. So negative 1.8 plus negative 8.6 divided by 2. My y1 and y2 are 2.5 plus 5.1 divided by 2. All right, so negative 1.8 minus 1.86, that's going to be further negative. You're probably looking at something, what, close to 10? What's it come out to? Negative 1.8 minus 8.6. I get negative 10.4. Divided by 2. Over here, 2.5 plus 5.1 should be 7.6. Divided by 2. Okay, so we're going to divide those on down. Okay, negative 10.4 divided by 2 should be negative 5.2. And what's 7.6 divided by 2? Looks 3.8. Okay, so negative 5.2, 3.8. If I go back to my answer key, look at question number 9, that's what I should get. C equals negative 5.2, 3.8. Okay, so what I want to learn from this is I'm going to need to know what the midpoint formula is and how to use it. Okay? All right. Next question up is number 10. 10 question. Yep. All right, so we should be able to skip kind of to the 4 plus 5 divided by 2 and the 2 plus negative 4 divided by 2. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 divided by 2 is, what, 4 halves, or what? 4.5. Let's just write it off as 4.5. 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. All right, is that doable? Okay, so just got to know that midpoint formula. Now, what you want to be aware of, I think we've had a question like this before, maybe we've at least worked one out, where they gave me one point of the line segment and they gave me the midpoint of the line segment, but I had to find the other point. Do we know how to do that? No? You're talking about distance formula? Okay, do we have a question? Is there a question in here that requires you to do the distance formula? Okay, I'll come to that if we have time. Oh, you just want to see the formula maybe? Okay, so distance formula. Given two coordinates, x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay. It would be that right there. Okay? There's your distance formula. Okay, so if you were to get, let's say that I had, I'm trying to think of how to do this. If they tell me that I have a line segment AB, right? And they tell me that A, let's keep it simple, it's coordinates 1, 2, right? And that, well, actually, let's change this just a touch. Let's say that this is AC, okay? And B is the midpoint, right? And they tell me that A is 1, 2, and B is 3, 4. Okay? B is the midpoint, it's not the end point. Okay? If I want to find C, what I'm going to have to write is 1 plus x divided by 2 equals 3. Because my midpoint equals the coordinates of my midpoint. My midpoint formula equals the coordinates of my midpoint. Okay? So over here I'd get 2 plus y divided by 2 equals 4. So I'm going to solve for x and y, and that's going to give me the other endpoint. That's all going to solve for C. Does that make sense? So be careful if they tell you what the coordinates of the midpoint are in one of the endpoints, right? I'm going to have to set it up like this to find that other endpoint. Okay? All right. Let's see, number 12. Okay. 12 gives you something like this. This is a lesson 12 question, 135 degrees here, 45 degrees here. It says prove that lines A and B are parallel. What I would look at here is 135 plus 45. What does 135 plus 45 equal? Does that equal 180? 180. So I would say through the converse of the same side interior angles theorem. Because the same side interior angles theorem says that if my two same side interior angles are supplementary, then my two lines cut by a transversal are parallel. So let's go to the answer key on lesson 12 real quick. The lines are parallel by the converse of the same side interior angles theorem. That's essentially what we've got. Okay? Now, because this is just a lesson 12 question, doesn't mean that you won't have to know alternate interior, alternate exterior, or corresponding angles. Okay, so you need to study lesson 12, and you need to know all four of those things. And they're all converse theorems, right? Number 11. Yeah, 11 is alternate exterior, converse of the alternate exterior angles theorem. Okay? All right, what was it? We need 5. Okay, 5, use inductive reasoning to find the next term in the following sequence. We've got 1, 4, 10, 22, 46, 94, 190. All right, so basically what you're doing is you're looking for a pattern. Okay, there's, I think, 2 patterns that you can go with on this. You could look at this as +3, and then this is +6, +12. So what's happening from one term to the next? All right, that's 24 plus 48 plus what, 96? Right, you're doubling the difference every time. So if I want to know what comes after 190, I'm going to take 96 times 2 and then add 190 to it, right? That's probably a better one. right? That's a better pattern because, yeah, the first one is 1 times 2 plus 2. 4 is 4 times 2 plus 2 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20 plus 2 is 22. Okay, 22 times 2 is 44. Okay, so you see the whole thing. So what we can do is 190 times 2. What was that, 380? 380 plus 2 should get 382, right? Okay, so times 2 plus 2. But on the test, it's not going to be the same pattern, right? It's going to be a different set of numbers, different inductive reasoning skills, okay? So you just have to look for a pattern and then apply the pattern. Well, what's 96 times 2? 192. So, right, so it should be 190 plus 192. Should still give you 382. Okay, so both patterns work. Okay, 14. Classify triangle XYZ and calculate its perimeter and area. Well, for classifying it, it should be a right triangle. Okay. Now it has an A, B, C, D, and E underneath of it, where it's saying find YZ, classify. Okay. Well, it's a right triangle. Okay, if we were going to find YZ, YZ is its hypotenuse. So for that, we need to do what? 16 squared plus 12 squared. Okay, we got 144. What's 16 squared? 256 plus 144, 400. Okay, so 20 would be my hypotenuse, right? Okay, so YZ equals 20. Is this an acute triangle? No, it's a right triangle, right? And then it says find the perimeter. Well, we're going to take 20 plus 16 plus 12. All right, we got 36 plus 12 was what, 48? 48 centimeters. Okay. So we've got those three answers. Okay, the next thing is it wants the area. Well, area is going to be base times height, which is what numbers? 16 times 12, right? Here, I'll write it up. So it's 16 times 12 divided by 2. Right, and what did you get, 96? 96 centimeters squared. Okay, pretty good there. Okay, that's 14, and I think we're getting down into like the ones and twos, or the singles, right? Okay. All right, question number 1. How many non-coplanar planes define space? 3. It's 3. Should be 3. 3 non-coplanar planes define space. We live in 3-dimensional space. Just consider that. When you think about space, think 3 dimensions, 3 non-coplanar planes. Okay. Let's see, 2. Okay, find the distance between the points. Okay, so this is a little different because it's points on a number line. You could count it, but the more technical way of doing it is to take your points, find the absolute value of their difference. So in this case, -1 minus 5. Okay, well, -1 minus 5 is -6. So I have a distance of 6. Okay, if you did it the other way around, you would do it 5 minus -1. Okay, which 5 minus negative 1 is 5 plus 1, so you get an absolute value of 6, and you still get 6. Okay, so the distance is 6. Okay, so it's not necessarily the same distance formula, okay, because you're not dealing with coordinates, right? You're just dealing with location. All right, 4. Which angle is complementary to IGH? Okay, it's showing you something like this, where this is IGH. We see a right angle here. The angle that's complementary with it is the angle that with it makes a 90-degree angle. In this case, it is IGF. Okay, it's the angle that plus it, right, makes 90 degrees, complementary. Questions about that? Okay, and then it says which angle is supplementary to it. Well, if this is the angle that we're talking about, then this angle is the angle that is supplementary to it. It goes from here, carries it on around, right? That would be angle IGJ, right? Okay, complementary, supplementary. 90, 180. Okay, do we get that? Do we understand it? I know I'm kind of going through here quick because I want to get through as much as I can. Okay, let's see, number 7. Identify the hypothesis and conclusion of the following statement. Okay, the hypothesis is the phrase that comes after the word if and goes up to the comma. So in this case, it's x equals 2 and y equals 5, right? Because that's what shows up between the if and the comma. Okay, the conclusion is what happens after the word then and goes to the period. So that's all you're writing, 2x plus 4y equals 24. Because your conditional statement is if x equals 2 and y equals 5, then 2x plus 4y equals 24. All we want are these parts associated with the hypothesis and the conclusion. Does that make sense to us? Okay. Okay, number 8. Determine the midpoint of the line segment connecting 6, -5 and -1, -6. Do we need to go over another midpoint question? You sure? Okay. All right, we'll just, since I've already got it up here, we'll go ahead and do it real quick. 6 plus -1 divided by 2. -5 plus -6 divided by 2. 6 plus -1 is 5. 5 divided by 2 is what, 3.5? Right? Okay, -5 plus -6 is -11. So I'm getting -11 divided by 2. I think that's -6.5. Is that right? No, -5.5. Right? Hold on. And I was wrong about the first one. It's it's 2.5. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. 11 divided by 2. Here in this case is -5.5. All right, 13. Prove the lines x and y in this figure are parallel. You're seeing something like this. Okay, you got 45 and 135. Let's see. Well, these aren't anything to each other, right? Okay, but these two angles are supplementary pairs, correct? They form 180 degrees. So what I know about that is if I take 180 minus 45, I get 135, which makes this 135, and this angle are what to each other? No, they're not. Angles are what to each other? Are they on the same side of the transversal? No, so they are alternate. Are they interior or exterior of the lines? Exterior. They are alternate exterior angles. Are they congruent? Okay, so we're going to say converse of the alternate exterior angles theorem. That's how I would do it. There's more than one way to do this. On number 13, though, the answer that they went with, angles 1 and 2 form a linear pair, therefore they're supplementary angles used in the definition of supplementary angles. Measure angle 1 equals 135, measure angle 2 is 45. Measure angle 2 equals measure angle 3, then measure angle 2 is congruent to measure angle 3. Measure angles 2 and 3 are alternate interior. So they went the alternate interior angles route. Basically what they did is they went to that angle from the 135, and they showed that these two angles were congruent. So they just went a different route with it. Okay, our route is not wrong. I would give you credit for that. All right, 16. Somebody dropped something. Let's see. In the diagram, which triangle is obtuse? Well, it's going to be, it can't be the right triangle, correct? So it's not triangle ABC. If you notice on triangle F or DEF, all those angles are acute. Okay, so you're left with triangle JKL. Okay, JK. 17. Find a counterexample to this conjecture. If a quadrilateral has two pairs of congruent sides, it is a parallelogram. I would say two pairs. If a quadrilateral has two pairs of congruent sides, we need a counterexample. A kite has two pairs of congruent sides, but it is not a parallelogram. Kite is my counterexample. Okay? So that makes sense. No, because a trapezoid does not have two pairs of congruent sides. It only has one. It can only have one pair of congruent sides. Now, if you guys give me a minute here, I'm going to look at some questions that are actually on the test. I'm going to look at the test as it is and see if I can't give you guys any pointers of stuff that might not have actually been on the review, but stuff that you're going to want to know. Okay, remember how I told you they were going to give you, let's see, you are going to need to know the midpoint formula. You are going to get a question that gives you one endpoint and the midpoint and have to find the other point. So that advice is good. You are going to have to know lesson 12 stuff. You're going to have to be able to classify a triangle by angles and sides. Okay, you're going to have to be able to find a counterexample of an algebraic expression. You're going to have to be able to determine some things about congruent figures. Midpoint shows up again. Let's see. So anyway, I'll let you go, and there's one question here I'll probably take off if I haven't already. Okay, but it looks like everything that we covered is on the test. Okay. All right, we'll see you guys later. Yep.